Hello, 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 and welcome to the Drag Race coverage here on reality TV RHAPups. I'm your host, Liana Boraas, and now UK may be over, but the US is still going strong, and we are going to be talking about episode 12, the roast episode of season 13 of Drag Race US. And we have our fabulous panel here today. Let me bring them in. First, we have a man who's, I'm really digging this shirt. If you're not watching the video version, you can check us out on RHAP as a podcast YouTube page. With this like checkered moment, which I'm really loving. Aman Adwin. Aman, how are you?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I was out earlier today and I was like, oh, I guess I should try and look presentable. So I went with this and not my usual quarantine chic. But yeah, I'm good. Glad to be back. Candy finally got a win. Yeah.
Woo woo.
That's right. Now Simone can't make that joke, the awkward, rambling joke about the VIP mess. But we will get into it all. Now, we have Beth as well with us today. Beth, how are you? Are you wearing your quarantine garb or... Because I'm in my PJs.
Okay, so I also just ran out to get food and I had to go into the restaurant to pick it up. So I elevated by just putting on a sweater. I have jeans. I mean, I wore pants.
You have jeans on? Like you would?
On.
Oh my God. Bless.
That's an accomplishment.
That's a great accomplishment in the quarantine games.
Listen, I wanted no surprises when I put jeans back on. So I've been consistently wearing jeans and getting surprises the entire quarantine anyway. So here we are.
There you go. All right. Well, sorry about that. We had to dive into our fashion because we didn't have a runway this week. So bear with us.
That's right.
Okay. Before we get into everything Drag Race, it is almost the start of the month, aka it might be the start of the month. And this is no April Fool's joke. Go subscribe if you want to the RHAP Patreon. If you subscribe at the beginning of the month, then you get all the benefits for the month and just get charged once instead of you could miss half the month if you go later. So big push to do that. I highly, highly recommend it. It allows us to do all the wonderful things that we do here for the Drag Race podcast. And you get a bunch of super fun bonuses. And you could be part of the Discord, the patron Facebook group, where you get to interact with all of us and interact with all the other patrons. So definitely go check that out.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So we have a few things to talk about to wrap up last week's episode, because after the elimination here, we get the revelation that Utica was, I guess, on the same page, at least as I was, that she thought that Tina deserved to stay, Aman. This was kind of shocking to hear a queen admit that.
It felt so weird to me, like, to hear her. I don't know, like, there's a lot of that going on right now. Like, even at the Grammys, people were like trying to give their awards away to other artists that deserve it more. And it's like, I like the sentiment, but you won. Like, we don't need to know that you are a good person by believing that Tina Burner should still be in the competition. Like, I get like survivor's guilt, but it just felt so cringy to me. I'm like, girl, just wipe the makeup off wipe the lipstick off that mirror and keep it pushing. Because honestly, you didn't need to say anything about that because other queens were going to say it for us. I mean, Candy. I mean, we know that Candy and Tina Burner were friends this season. But I mean, I tend to agree with Candy. I don't think that she was being biased. I think that Tina turned it in the lip sync, and yeah, I mean, but I think what it came down to ultimately was Tina hadn't been winning competitions. Utica, you had a win under your belt, so your track record was a little better. That, and you didn't bomb at the lip sync, so you're here. So celebrate that.
I mean, and then we get the whole, like, it's an honor to lip sync, Beth. And I loved Gottmik's talking head about it. It was
my God. It's watching that whole situation is like, you can physically see somebody try to self-edit themselves, like for the camera. Like, I have a mixture of emotions. I'm in a pressure cooker, but how do I want to come off in this moment? I want to come off like, oh, it's an honor to be here. And But I also feel like Tina should have stayed, but I'm happy that I stayed. And it's just like all these different emotions where like I felt like that amusement ride, the scrambler, where you're like over here, and then you get thrown over there. That's literally what that moment felt like as an audience member. And I watching the queens all have deadpan faces, just like watching Utica go through like 6 different emotions in 30 seconds was really great. Just
it was just so unnecessary.
Big rose energy. Yeah. Okay, here's the thing about Utica, and we got the shades of it in the Untucked moment a couple weeks back, where they were talking about how Utica is this different person on camera than she is in person, and or off camera, I guess. And so I think the whole like, oh, editing myself to be on camera is one thing that gives us a little bit of a window into that, but then also just the whole roast in general. Like, remember how she had this binder of reads? Oh God, I'm like, no wonder Rose was upset. I'm like terrified to know what was in that binder.
I mean, it was perfect foreshadowing for this very challenge. Like,
yeah,
they warned us that this was happening. So very great storytelling on the editing team's part, because we were primed and ready to watch her fail. But yeah, I mean, though that binder must have been some really, really, really sick and twisted shit.
I also read quite
observations.
Observations, yeah. I also read some stuff, and I don't know what the validity is here, so just know that, you know, I'm understanding this is the internet, but there's quite a few people who are saying that Utica has had this kind of problematic personality at home too, that this is there's a two-facedness almost about her, and that some of it actually has come in the form of like microaggressions and such in the past, where she's like gone too far. So there's a part of me that wonders if, like, I think it's clear, and this isn't meant to be a personal attack on her in any capacity, but I think it's clear that she's somebody who just is on a different wavelength from other people. So how is she navigating social relationships and working relationships and those kind of things? And I can understand trying to be funny, but like not fitting in with that crew and like coming off something like a little different. Like, I think we've all had kind of those moments, but it seems to happen to her consistently. So it's one of those things where it's like, I really hope that she uses, especially this week's episode that we'll be talking about, is kind of like a learning experience of like how to grow as a communicator.
I mean, she is from a farm, right? And not to say that all farm people, you know, we're supposed to give them all passes if they're out here being disrespectful. I just think that you're right. I think that she doesn't really have a lot of experience with other queens. I think a lot of her drag is internally produced and received. You know what I mean? Not to say that she doesn't go out and perform, but no one is now because COVID. But I think that she just is just a little different, and her social abilities aren't quite there yet. And I mean, she came forward with that in the Untalk when she's like, I find myself doing a lot of code switching and editing and trying to figure out who I want to be. And yeah, I mean, just from what we saw at the beginning of the episode, where she's like, yeah, I'm so sorry about Tina, but oh my God, lip syncing is so great, but Tina deserves it, but I'm happy to be here. Like, it was like, just look, you're still in the competition. You beat Tina Burner. You sent her home. You can feel sad that she's gone, but you can be happy that you won. And that's all you have to say. It doesn't have to be this whole soliloquy about Tina Burner and how it was just too much. It's just too much.
A Shakespearean soliloquy that comes about Act 4. You know,
right?
This is what this, yeah.
It's so weird because she seems like at times someone who is just so incredibly concerned with how she's coming across in her image, but yet at other times blatantly disregarding the feedback that Lonnie and Michelle are giving her. So it's like, okay, do you care? Do you not care? Like, it's all just, it's very, very confusing. Yes. Very, I don't know. Like, she's a heel turn for her sometimes.
She's an interesting character for me.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very end of the day, I think, I mean, while there have definitely been some, oh man, this episode for her, oh my God, we'll get into it. But I have enjoyed Utica on the show. I do like the fact that she does care. She doesn't want to be disrespectful. She tries to be as appropriate as possible. I think that you can let the pendulum swing a little too far, girl. I think that the overcorrection is a little, it's like, okay, like, it's to the point like where she's like kind of like fetishizing the wokeness of it all. And I'm like, girl,
it comes off as disingenuine. It comes off as performative. Like it doesn't come off as like, I mean, you wore a Bob Ross like squirrel afro because you didn't want to wear an afro, but like the character you're playing has an afro. Like, I mean, it's just like those kind of things that come off as like, I'm trying to be performative rather than like, I'm trying to like be culturally appropriate and all those different kinds of things too. Not appropriate culture. But like
cultural appreciation versus
right. But there's a fine line though where it doesn't come off as genuine, and it's hard when we're not seeing. And part of this, again, it has to do with COVID and we're in all these other things that we normally would see queens right now out at gigs, and we'd have more information about like who they are, right? And this is a little harder because we're kind of going off of only the show, and this, I don't know. She just I need more context here because the context we're seeing online, at least, is kind of pointing that there's a kind of duplicitous side of her that is maybe why we're seeing what we're seeing on the show.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I think, more truths will come out, right? Especially if there's a reunion and that kind of thing. So I'm interested to learn more about the situation. And there's always more to unpack when it comes to Utica, but we can when we get into everything with the specifics of this challenge. I mean, the other really main thing is that we get the foreshadowing of Candy. You know, Candy's the only one without a win, and then she's got a big win here, like opens the show and really kills it. So that sort of, opens and closes her story when it comes to this episode. But all right, let's move on to talk about the mini challenge, which I loved personally. I am obsessed with anything that is the hands behind having to do something, whether it's putting on makeup or like cooking or something. So the queens were put in pairs and were tasked with doing a makeup tutorial to take a glam selfie. And this was sponsored by Anastasia Beverly Hills and promoting the Norvina collection palette here. Aman, what did you think of this mini challenge?
Yeah, I also am obsessed with this kind of stuff. I vacillate between which role I really would want to take. Do I want to be the mischievous one that's behind there, like doing all this crazy stuff? Or do I want to like go with the flow and like narrate the actions of the hands that are not my own and try to make it as funny as possible? I don't know. They both seem like really, really fun things to do. And when you're like really gelling with your partner, it just creates such great comedy. I think it was a lot of fun. It was nice to actually, because this is like a silly mini challenge that I feel like actually has a little bit more merit to it versus, get up there and be a rock star 80s glamazon person and make RuPaul laugh.
Baby.
Yeah, or be a baby. This one to me felt like there's an actual task at hand. You're just trying to have like the most outrageous face as possible and just make them laugh.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I liked this one a lot. It reminded me a lot of the season 6 where like somebody's on top and like they had the legs and like the bikini and stuff. I love that kind of stuff too. As you were speaking, Aman, all I could think of was like, I would need Aman to be the one who gets like the makeup applied on him while he's like, because you would be so good at the commentary. Like the commentary would just be so funny. I could like feel.
It would be so fun. It would be so like just trying to just make sense of all of the effery that is happening to you. Like, yeah, just. And
I also like some of the physical comedy of this too, right? The fact that Utica was the arms and her arms were like 15 times the body.
Like daddy long legs.
Well, and then it felt like Olivia's were too short with Simone because Simone is so tall. Like she literally couldn't even reach her eyes. And that's why when they were doing the smoky eye tutorial, so was like, we'll start at the chin. Yeah, we started the chin. And you can tell Olivia's like straining. Like she's holding the brush by the very, very tip to try to get it up to her eye.
It was like a T-Rex trying to put on makeup. Yeah. It was amazing.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah. So we get Rose and Candy paired together, Simone and Olivia, and Utica and Gottmik, which they end up giving the win here to Rose and Candy. Beth, did you think that was ultimately the right decision?
I thought it was. I think Rose really kind of set the tone for the other ones. And I felt like they were all really funny. I didn't have one pair that I was like, oh, these were bad. So this is why I also really like this mini challenge. There was not a horrible, and even sometimes with these challenges, the horrible ones are also like equally entertaining. But they were all great. But I think that Rose and Candy really set the bar. And then everybody kind of matched it. And so I was happy with the two of them winning.
Yeah, I think Rosé's commentary for me was the best part. Although I was partial also to Utica and Gottmik with just the long arms and so especially because Gottmik just very much has that YouTuber vibe to her somehow. Like I really felt that for them. But
Gorge.
Anyway, yeah, Gorge. Oh my God, Gorge, love this. Yeah, very very fun, very very fun. I'd be so excited to see this again. And honestly, they could. Cook, like I'm saying, cook something, paint something, do something, like, and then have the person try to comment. I'm obsessed with this type of stuff. So anyway, very much here for this. Okie dokie. That gets us into our Maxi challenge, the entree, if you will. It's a roast. We get the Nice Girls roast, where 3 Miss Congeniality winners, Heidi and Closet, Nina West, and Valentina, the, of course, face mask pioneer. Oh my God. And then when Rue was like, she was right, I was wrong.
RuPaul was on some sort of like different level this episode. We need to talk about that. Maybe this isn't the time, but at some point this episode, we need to discuss what is going on with RuPaul. Because I was here for it.
It's like 1 to 2 episodes every season where he is
just goes off the rails.
I forget what season it was. I don't know if it was like 11 or 10, but there was one time where he did his normal walkthrough of the workroom. And he was just like cracking jokes left and right, laughing at everything, like slamming his hand down on the table. And there were like so many like tweets talking about, did RuPaul do a line before this episode? Because like, he is so full of energy. And this was definitely one of those episodes for me. He was on one this episode.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole judging panel was so rowdy during the roast. I don't know.
I mean, I thought they were supposed to be though, because like this roast. Well, we'll talk about it. I don't want to.
Yeah, and like no audience, all that stuff. All right, so yeah, so that's our setup. That's what we're gonna end up having for the Maxi challenge this week. And because Candy and Rose won the mini challenge, they're the ones that get to determine the order here. And so we have the whole issue of, all right, where do we want to go? Which is really Rose's main focus of, okay, we get to set it. Let's pick us first and then fill in the gaps. And they sort of had this strategy of, look, we're going to take the risk. We're going to go in the hard positions. We're going to go first and last. We're going to open and close the show, which I think Rose really captured it well of, this is a risk, but you have to take risks. And this is what we want to do in order to stand out. That coupled, Beth, with I think one of the comments that one of them made that was like, there's clear tops and bottoms here. Like already, I think they felt confident enough to just do it. They're like, look, we're going to be fine.
I mean, you can't 100% count on the tops and the bottoms in those kind of situations. But if you feel confident, that's all that matters, right? And these different, it doesn't matter if you open, close, do the middle, if you're like set up or whatever, the order doesn't matter. It only matters psychologically. And if you get in your head, or if you don't have the confidence, regardless of wherever you are, then you're going to bomb. That's just the fact of it. But if you have confidence in yourself and you do fine, like it doesn't matter where the order is, correct, right? So in this group, even though you really can't say, because like I feel like everybody would have thought like, what's her face from season 6? Lipstick Assassin, wanted to be Beyonce. I can't. The Queen.
Season 6.
Season 6. Oh my gosh.
Trinity.
Thank you. Yes. Like Trinity came out of nowhere and did really well in the roast and that kind of thing, right? And nobody would have ever thought that she was going to do well.
You're running my light bill
up. Yeah, exactly. I mean, like she was somebody who really was able to tap into something and like have a point of view. And while it's not the same thing as a roast, it's the stand-ups kind of thing, right? It's similar. So you can't just 100% count on somebody just like failing because they haven't shown that they're super funny yet. But if you have the confidence to take over the part that you want to do, then go for it, and you're gonna be fine.
I mean, Aman, what do you think of that? That the concept of the order doesn't really matter.
I think when we were when they were Candy and and Rose were having the conversation about whether or not they wanted to go first or last or whatever, I was like, well, both of you seem very confident that your material is going to be good. So for you two, it really doesn't matter. Like, if you guys are both talking about how you want to take the risk and you want that moment to get that win, then just be good and go first or last. Like, why does it matter if this one's first or that one's last? And I think yes and no. I think that order doesn't matter. I think that I do agree with that. Like, it is a big mind game. Like, if your roast is good, it really doesn't matter where you are in the lineup. If you are memorable and you make RuPaul laugh, it doesn't matter. But I do think that there is something to be said about having a particular set of jokes in the beginning. Like, if you're opening up, you have to corral the audience. And if you don't do that, like, if you're going second, there's like, your jokes don't have to, get the audience all hyped and ready. Yeah. And if you're, and the same thing with closing, like, there's like a tone to your set that has to be like, all right, we're wrapping this shit up. You know what I mean? Whereas, like, you don't have to really do it in the middle. So I think that there is a certain style that's needed for them. So I think it does matter there. And if you're not equipped to open, then don't do it. But I think at the end of the day, if you're a funny bitch and you know how to write some jokes, go wherever. Who cares?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's interesting because someone like Gottmik, who on the rewatch I thought did actually quite well, and she really made me laugh. And I wonder if she was impacted a bit by being sandwiched in between people who were not so great, and that just the general energy when she first came out. I mean, you have to be able to quickly try to turn that around because they only had 6 minutes, I think, for their set. So that I think can have a little bit of a subtle impact. Yeah. But again, like you guys are saying, true. if you're funny, you're funny. You know what I mean? Yeah. If you're gonna bomb, you're gonna bomb. It doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah. I think that's right too. I think if you are looking to get the win, historically speaking, if you're the opener or the closer, those are the ones that typically are going to get the most critique. So if you want all the attention on you and you want that win, then go for it. If you're like me and it's not really good, I mean, I think that I'm a funny person, but I don't write jokes. Like, I'm not sitting down writing punch. It's just not happening.
Right.
So I think that I could probably last pretty well if I just squeezed somewhere in the middle, because I think that I could probably be that nice little bridge to get us to the finish line. But I'm not opening up no shows. I'm not doing that. I'm just not.
But see, that's the self-awareness you need. You know what I mean? Totally. And when they were announcing the order, the Simone like audibly gasping when Candy said she was gonna go first. I loved that moment. Like, oh my gosh! Like, I can't believe you would do that to yourself. And ultimately, it paid off.
Cracking up at Olivia when I know that she wasn't trying to be funny, but I guffawed when she was like, "Child, I'm not funny." I laughed at her. I was like, that was funny.
Yeah, well, the other interesting thing was Gottmik being kind of down on herself, like, oh, the roast is the thing I'm most nervous about. But when they were determining the order, the logic was, well, we want to keep the show high, so we're going to spread out the funny girls, and Gottmik was one of the funny girls. So obviously they saw it, even if Gottmik wasn't confident in herself, which I thought was also pretty interesting. But
yeah. I think there's a difference there, though, and just, I mean, there is a difference between stand-up and a roast. And I think that people, as we will discuss, there is a delicate balance between something that is funny and cutting and something that is not even funny, but just an insult. And I think that that's where a lot of people who aren't used to doing that really get worried about, am I going to be funny enough for a roast, or am I just being mean?
Yeah. Very pheromone. Okay, let's just jump right on in to everything, and we can talk about like the rehearsal, the impact of the rehearsal and all of that as we go through each of the queens, because as we see with our very first opener of the show, Candy, she cuts her charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent joke, which I think was probably a good idea, or the censors somehow decided that it was okay for the rehearsal but not okay for the actual thing. But I felt like we got her, I don't know, felt like her full performance, Aman. I didn't time it, but we got a lot from Candy.
Yeah, I mean, they were like, look, she's gonna win. Like, they wanted us to see as many of the jokes as possible that we got from her. They wanted us to see like how she was in rehearsal and how she had, I mean, she had the classic thing of give us too much, and then we'll pull you back. You know what I
Right.
mean? And then you'll get that win. I think first of all, I love the way that she looks. I love a bigger girl trying to show you like I can cinch my shit too, girl. I can get into a dress like this too, girl. I love. I agree with I think it was Michelle that said I could have used a little bit more hair. The hair does seem a little
little flat.
It's a little flat. It's a little
Yeah,
flat. It's a little
flat.
shake and go. Little shake and go.
flat.
Mhm.
Girl, can
But
you
I think that she
padding in your boobs?
yeah.
Did
She
she
could have done like a little bit
padding?
more of a
all she needed was a cup in there.
yeah.
Something
like
A little chicken cutlet.
a little just a little bit more jiggle.
If it doesn't even need to have like anything that looks like from the skin. She just needs like literal cups in there to smooth it out, because it literally looks like I'd have nothing to back these cups up right now. So they're just a whole bunch of extra material. That would have made it look really, really good. And her proportions, I think, would look a little bit more together, because I love that she's cinched, but she just looks a little off. And I think it's because of the chest area.
Right.
I love her joke about Valentina's angel needing an angel.
That was
Yes.
good. That was good.
Because Valentina in Rent Live, I mean,
It was a moment.
it was a moment.
I think people are just going to say that, oh, Beth, it's because you haven't been rooting for Kandi, which is not true. That's not the case. But I have heard half of these jokes from like Bianca Del Rio before.
Some of them were definitely like
These were not Kandi came up with these jokes. These are common jokes that are said, especially in the drag circle. I can't tell you how many
times. A lot of people were living for the "she died" joke, and I'm like, I've definitely heard that one before.
Yes, there. That was Mimi. I'm first doing a roast. I mean, that is Mimi, one of Mimi's jokes. And like people who are who've watched a lot of like the Queen's performances online for various different things, like know that Mimi I'm First is like one of the best roasters in the game. Like she is incredible. And half of these were either Bianca Del Rio, Mimi I'm First, or Bob the Drag Queen jokes. And so like I didn't laugh because I'd already heard these.
Right.
But I don't know, like
material.
So we can see that kind of stuff because we're super fans of the show and we watched seasons multiple times. Does RuPaul remember even what he had for breakfast that day? Like
nobody remembers what he ate for breakfast in 1979 on this date. That's the funny part.
So I don't know. Maybe there were some critiques in there that didn't make it to the episode. I would not be surprised if somebody like, because Lonnie wouldn't know. Lonnie wouldn't know what had been done.
Right.
Maybe I could totally see Michelle being like, girl, some of those jokes were definitely, we've heard some of those before. Like I could totally see that happening, but they just cut it out because they wanted Kandi to get the win here. So
right.
I definitely think this was if Kandi doesn't bomb. Because this is a do or die challenge for Kandi. She doesn't do well. She's in the bottom and she has to lip sync and they probably send her home, right? Like this is, so if she does somewhat well, I feel like from a production editing standpoint, they have to be like, okay, we got to give her a win then.
Well, and we got to justify why we kept her.
Exactly. That's the point.
C.
Yes, exactly.
So
I feel like, in my opinion, I felt like her praise was a little too much from the judges. I was like, she did great. She opened up the show. She got the energy up. I'm not going to take any of that away from her. She had funny jokes in there, but how many of them were original and things that I like openly laughed at when I laughed way more at Gottmik and Rose? Like that was my whole thing when it came to this challenge.
I think that's the thing is that how unique is the joke, and the Nina football shoulders joke, the Heidi fashion joke, like that stuff, again, all stuff I've heard before. The angel needs an angel, that joke I thought was hilarious. I hadn't heard that anywhere. And then the extra on Soul Plane Lonnie Love joke also
that was good,
made me laugh. So I will give her that. I thought she had fabulous. I obviously have the same critiques I think as you, Beth, in terms of just the originality of the jokes. But that being said, to start the show without an audience also, holy crap, like that's hard, because yes, of course you have the other girls cackling to the side and you've got the judges there, but it's just such a kind of awkward feel, I would imagine, to go out there without people to perform to. So
they should have just had the crew there. Why couldn't they just do that?
I know, right? I don't know. That's what they do for the Masked Singer. They have the crew out there so that at least there's someone that they can perform to. So I think that would have been a good idea. But I don't know.
They should have just kidnapped Norvina and have her,
bring her there.
All right, you're the one audience member. Here you go.
It just, oh my gosh, that would have been so funny. I guess, also she had the queens there sitting on stage, which I thought that was a choice in general, to have the Miss Congeniality sitting on stage versus to have them in the audience. What did you guys think about that?
I didn't really mind it. I think it's probably just, it makes it easier for them to just get the full shot of them all, as they're reacting to the joke. So yeah, I was fine with it.
Yeah.
See, that's normally a setup with the roast, though, is to have the people up on the stage. But for Drag Race in the past, it's only been about RuPaul or Michelle. So since they're on the judges panel, they're over there. So this is giving people an opportunity to have it set up in a normal capacity. I was just happy that we actually got to have those three in person on the show. Like, that is cool.
That's true.
And it is a challenge to roast the nice girls. They're the Miss Congeniality. I mean, Valentina, not so much.
That one was really easier.
But the other two,
how do you
definitely?
Well, that's the thing. What bad? That's why so as someone who is actively obsessed with Nina West, what bad can you say about her? That's why there were so many shoulder football jokes, because literally nothing else bad can you say about her. She comes out with the flag dress, effectively flag dress with all the colors representation, the love is love, whatever, in the collar. Just anyway, obsessed. I was very happy to see her. Okay.
But you can absolutely, there's a lot of things you can make fun of for her run in season 11. Just go after her there are things that you could do there.
Right, for sure.
So yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about the Flag Factory voice that was Simone this week. I think Nina West captured it with Simone is bombing. It's like time has stopped, because that's certainly how it felt to me, at least for the first part of her roast, with all of the pheromone. Mon, you captured it so well. The sighs. Doesn't really make for a good roast.
Yeah. So I felt for Simone here because this is what happens when I try to write jokes. Like when I physically try to write things out, they get so convoluted, and it's like the joke is in there. You just have to trim the fat. Like you're doing too much. Like you're not letting the audience do some of the work. Like brevity is the soul of wit. It has to be short. It has to be concise. It has to be to the point. When you're doing too much, now look, I love a good setup. I love a good hook. I love a good setup, and I love a good payoff at the end. But you got 6 minutes, and unless you were already somebody like Seinfeld, it's not happening. It's just not. It's not happening. So those jokes, and as she's she's explaining to them to Lonnie and Michelle, and no, we get it, but it's not. you have to shorten it out, and she just couldn't. And it's a hard skill to sort of learn, because I don't know, there are times even during Big Brother season, there are times when I am writing out something that I think is really funny about whatever's going on in the house, and then there are times where I'm like, why is this joke 280 characters? There's got to be a better way.
A shorter way to say
make this shorter. And I noticed it on engagements on tweets. It's always the short ones that go viral because they're quick, they're easy, and people are like, that's funny, and they click, they like it, and it goes. When it's long like that, it's people don't want to read, they scroll past. If you have to be,
you have to capture their attention.
Yeah.
I kept thinking, thank goodness she looks so good, because that's what I ended up focusing on. I had to go back and rewatch her set so I could what was she saying? Because I was so bored that I was just oh, look at the detail there, and how I literally just completely tuned her out. Was just looking at
her fumbling with those cards. I was like, oh my god, screw the cards. The jokes aren't even good anyway. What are you looking for?
Time out. Can we talk about the moment that this was my favorite little bit of editor shade that they did when Michelle says to Rose, and you were the only one up there without any cards. They pan over to Simone, and Simone does this kind of
checks
side glance. And I was just oh man, editors.
Her and Olivia really Olivia even more so felt like her nose was literally in the cards, but yeah, it was
That would have been a perfect opportunity on the judging panel if that happened and I had cards. I'd have been like, I didn't have them either. I would have tried to make that so funny. Like,
oh God.
Oh gosh. I can empathize with her also. I mean, clearly this isn't her strong suit. She was getting the feedback though of you have to make these quicker, concise, shorter. And I almost felt when she was giving the performance or she was doing the roast, that she had written the jokes. Then she had done the rehearsal and they had told her to edit the jokes. So she tried to edit the jokes, but then her brain, because she had practiced the first version, kept reverting back to like the lengthy version of the joke. And that's why she kept looking at the notes. I mean, she got a little bit of steam under her, I would say, later on as it went along. But yes, I'm with you, Beth, and Heidi, who, I wish her jokes were as good as she looked.
I know.
Yeah. It was a slow burn.
Yeah.
That entire roast.
Yeah. Oh goodness. Okay. Let's hop on to our next queen.
Oh God.
If we have to.
Oh God.
Utica. I don't know where to start. I don't know where to start. Beth, you've been positive of Utica during the season. How did you feel she did here?
That's about to change. Welcome on into Beth Goes Against Her Thought. No, just kidding. Okay, so here's the thing. This is a prime example for the fourth week in a row. Again, where Utica is not listening.
Yes.
And she also isn't letting people in on the joke portion. So something is happening where there's a connective part that is a joke in her head, but half of it is not coming out. So whether it's a setup or something like that, in the case of a roast that would help maybe lessen the sting and bring up the funny factor, that context is missing. And her biggest downfall is she's not listening to Lonnie and Michelle. But I would also say that Lonnie and Michelle know her well enough at this point and have given her plenty of feedback before that if this was somebody who was a front runner in the competition or that Michelle that had a particular liking to, I'm pretty sure Michelle would have straight up said, that's just hurtful. It's not funny. Instead, she said was, well, I mean, you got to make it a little funnier, like make sure it's not mean. And like that is for someone like Utica is not going to get through. If you say Utica,
right,
that's not even funny. It's just plain mean. And we need you to really revamp this because you're just coming off as offensive. If she had said that, I think Utica would have paid attention. But when you give her just a little bit of feedback and like don't really hit her over the head with it, Utica has proven that she's somebody that just kind of dances off to her own beat and kind of vaguely hears what you're saying, and that's it. So I mean, I'm not trying to put the blame on Michelle or Lonnie. I'm just saying in general, like apparently that's the kind of feedback Utica needs in order to like make anything happen. And that's also that's mostly Utica's fault.
She peaked with the first joke. I thought I was the one with the balls to bomb this hard, and then it was a free fall into disaster. There were jokes that I didn't get, insults that I didn't understand. The whole concept, Aman, of compliment then insult was nowhere to be found with Utica.
Right.
I was having a conversation with my friend earlier. I want to believe that entire rehearsal was edited to make her look worse than what she actually was. I want to believe that. Now, don't get me wrong. What came out of her mouth? Nobody put those words in her mouth. She was out here calling Lonnie a whale and saying that Michelle looks like she's had like she was out here she said that stuff. But they were literally like Michelle would like try to cut her off to say, okay, that's not a funny joke. You need to do this. And then Utica would go right back in with another insult. And I'm like, did Utica literally just insult her again after she got the critique? Like, I really want to believe that the editing team was just exaggerating what happened there. Because if that's exactly what Utica did, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? Like, she literally said, it's not a funny joke. She's like, oh, Utica's like, oh, do you not get it then? Like, have you not seen The Lion King? She's like, yes, I've seen The Lion King.
So here's the thing. I know people like Utica. I've been Utica in this situation before, though, too, okay? Where you are so desperate for the laugh, or you were so desperate for something that, like, you turn this into another, like, oh, I'm going to continue to try to be funny and be like, what do you mean you don't know this? Blah, 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 blah. And you get so lost in, like, digging yourself a hole of trying to be funny that it just is worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And I can see that there are people who just, like, don't know how to rip on people. And like I have, I have a friend group, right? And like every friend group I've ever had, there's that one person who just doesn't know how to go back and forth. Oh yeah, Liana will blah, blah, blah. And like Liana will come back and be blah, blah, blah. And then like the third person jumps in and is like, blah, blah, blah. And it makes no sense. And they're trying and it's like just not landing and it's offensive. And like, that's Utica. You know what I mean?
It was just ridiculous. It was just ridiculous. Like she said in her confessional, I just love comedy that is really, really honest and just really, really straight to the point. I just love a good cutting observation with just a little bit of truth to it. I'm like, okay, so you mean when you say a little bit of truth, you mean just a little bit of being a bitch? Like you just like right. To be mean. Like that's how do you like? You said that you like observations that are true. Well, if it's an observation, it's already true. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it was the most cringe-worthy thing. And then the whole thing with Lonnie saying, "Do you not speak whale?" Because Utica, oh my God, what is wrong with you? Like,
the hand motion killed me.
Why do you think that this is not? It's not. Oh my God, it was so bad. It was so bad.
So bad.
Now, I do want to. So Utica did tweet out an apology. I don't know if y'all saw this. She said, I want to apologize my performance in this episode of Drag Race, especially to Lonnie Love, Michelle Visage, and Nina West did tag all of them and said the jokes were in bad taste and my attempt at roast humor was, for the lack of better words, horrible. Making fun of people's size is not okay. I'm truly sorry. Michelle responded and said, Utica, you do not need to apologize to me, love. It did not offend me. The point was just this. If you're going to go for it, it had to be funny.
Right.
Honestly, don't beat yourself up. Love you. Nina West replied, babe, it's a roast. And we were all in on it and fully aware it was a roast. Give yourself a little grace. So just to put that out there, I mean, obviously this is being spoken to, and there's a lot of comments here from people who just generally were hurt at home and say like, I'm a bigger person and this was just hurtful. It wasn't artfully crafted and those kind of things. And somebody had the good point of saying RuPaul was called old in 50 different ways, but it was funny. And it was creative, and it wasn't ageist at the end of the day. And the same thing could be applied to size. The same thing could be applied for anything like that, right? Where, as long as it's artfully crafted and funny and creative and those kind of things.
It's like what Ross said, nothing is off limits. It just has to be funny.
Yes. And I think this is Utica's run on this show, I'm sure, has shown her ways that she can grow as a performer and a person to help make these moments where she is, for a lack of better phrase, socially awkward and not getting the picture and like not listening and not getting cues and those kind of things. I'm hopeful that this will help her in her growth. Obviously, for all that we've said about her, I truly do think that she's a good person. I think how much of it, again, is performative, how much isn't. But when you've been called out by thousands of people, I think she's going to listen. So, I mean, putting that out there too.
At least she gave us a little celebrity Big Brother shout out. Although it was like,
I know, right?
I couldn't tell if it was like supposed to be just a gay joke or like an incest joke.
I don't know.
Big celebrity Big Brother with benefits? What? Ew! Like, what are you talking about?
I think it was that, like, Ross, you're a whore. I think that was the joke. Because it was like, oh, you'd be on Celebrity Big Brother and then you'd, like, hook up with people on the
And
show.
then the
I don't know.
Skittles
That was
joke was just really
Okay.
weird.
the bull. Okay, so okay. I have so many thoughts in my head right now. So first, I want to go back to just the
So
concept
bad.
of nothing is off limits, but you have to make it funny. Look no further than Gottmik with the Ross Matthews comes to pizza being delivered in porn. That is a fat joke.
Amazing.
Okay, that's a fat joke. That's like you eat too much pizza, so you come to the pizza and the porn, right? But it's crafted in such a fun way that does make it really funny and raw. You know, obviously, right? Okay, so I think that to me is like the perfect example. That being said, a number of the jokes made no sense to me from Utica. Why? What, the Heidi and closet bull semen joke? I'm sorry, what is that like a thing with Heidi that we didn't know? What?
I was like, what happened backstage? What happened in the preseason? We don't get it, Utica. We don't get it.
That I don't get. And the Skittles on the dick one, I also did not get. I tried to Google. I didn't really learn much except read some very interesting Urban Dictionary articles. But like, I didn't like. Is that a thing that I don't know?
The only thing I could think of was potentially taste the rainbow. Is this a gay joke? Rainbow, something there, but
Maybe
I don't know if that's it. I don't know.
Maybe I think what made it hard was that they bleeped out the word that she substituted skills with. So maybe she said you didn't skeet on the dick, and then turned it into Skittles. But like, ew.
What? I still don't get it. I don't still get how okay, whatever. Anyway, fine. Yeah, it tastes rainbow. All right.
Time out. I just want to point out that her face in this photo, if you're watching the YouTube video, is just a perfect representation of the entire panel right now as we try to figure out what she was saying.
It's awkward.
Oh my god. And then what really killed it was Lonnie jumping in with Oh my god.
When Lonnie is the star of your set, that's a problem.
In that moment, I was like, and the winner of this week's challenge is Lonnie Love. Because so Utica, right, makes the insult of your comedy is terrible to Lonnie, right? Essentially. And then Lonnie just starts laughing. This was like the most emotional journey that I've been on in a long time where I'm like, why is she laughing?
I think she had it at that point.
Oh, exactly. No. As soon as she heard it, it clicked for her. She started laughing and then said, well, you're the one who's bombing.
Yeah. And then that look on Utica's face where she was like literally legitimately like a deer in the headlights after that, didn't know what to say. I was like, girl, you really deserve it, because she was being so nice in the run through,
rehearsals.
Yeah. She was being so nice. She was being very accommodating. But now you done done this in front of RuPaul and the rest of the girls and all the producers that are on set. Like, if I were Lonnie, that would have flipped for me too. I would have been like, okay, we got to bring you down, because you're not about to just. It's not funny. It's not funny.
And then let me tell you the moment when it was solidified for me that Utica will never be on RuPaul's Drag Race ever again on any All-Stars iteration was the moment Utica asked RuPaul to stand up. There is, of course, the, I don't know what to call it, rumor fact that RuPaul changes into sweatpants when they sit behind the judges' table. And the two birds that RuPaul sent back, not a joke. I do not think that was a joke.
No, and this is the best part about it is that Utica still thinks, oh, look at engagement. And then is happy when RuPaul does it again later during the judging. And it's just Utica. This is again just the lack of being able to take the cues of what's happening.
The social awareness of the situation, and that's the thing that's just not there for her. And I don't know about her upbringing, that maybe she just was more isolated as a child.
Had no idea about the sweatpants rumor. That just made this so much worse for me.
That's why she said stand up. Like, you're a fashion icon. Please stand up. Which is like, we want to applaud you, but it's more like show us the truth that you
You're
de-drag
wearing-
from
yeah.
the bottom down. Oh, and RuPaul not wearing nails also when she flipped her off, like, made me so happy. Because
It was amazing.
Pearl had
It was
tweeted about
amazing.
it, that like you can't even bother to put nails on if you're on. Pearl and Utica can bond over being banned from RuPaul's Drag
Oh my
Race.
God.
Fine.
There's a good club there. Willem, Courtney
Yep.
Act, all these
Mhm.
people that can get together. Carmen. Oh, God.
So
Oh,
yeah,
man.
so that was Utica.
Can I be honest though?
Yeah.
That was I was so rooting for Utica in that moment.
Oh yeah, I loved
so
that
happy
moment. That
about
was hilarious.
I was like, yeah, Utica, you better go for RuPaul right now.
If-
That's great.
If you're gonna bomb that hard,
into it.
just go for it from the
Got
fan
so
perspective.
into it.
But
Oh
yeah.
my god.
Okay, so that was sufficiently awkward. Let's talk about someone who was able to turn everything around and really, I think, do an absolute fabulous job. And that is Gottmik. Beth, you had said that you responded really well to Gottmik. What about her set did you really vibe with?
She just came across as like a professional stand-up comedian. Her pacing, her timing, how she crafted her jokes, everything just seemed like really well put together. It was funny. I don't know. I just really, really loved her point of view. And not to mention, I mean, to be honest, she could have told the dumbest knock knock joke in the entire world. And I would have been like, oh, thank God, Utica's not on anymore.
I'm just not personally offended, thank God. Okay. I think for me, of course, being able to then come in and be like, how am I ever going to follow that one up? And then I'm sure the UTI joke she had already written, but it fit so well. Like she really benefited from that of I feel uncomfortable and I need a bottle of pills to forget about you. That I thought was really fabulous. And I think having Utica and Gottmik back to back just painted the parallels for me of the concept of a roast where if you're gonna be rude, and they said this to Pheromone, if you're gonna be rude, you're gonna be cutting, you have to set up the love first. And that was what Gottmik did really well. Maybe a little bit too much where it felt so formulaic in a sense, but with Lonnie Love, oh my gosh, I love you so much. And then you get the hilarious budget cuts joke. I didn't realize that applied to the panel as well. Or Ross with the pizza joke. You get set up with the love and then you get hit with the insult, which is always, I think, something to play it safe in the roast because that just works super, super, super well. And I was, maybe it was the editing of, Gottmik's nervous and then she ends up killing it. And so I kind of fell for that little redemption story Aman, but I thought that Gottmik did fabulous here.
No, I think she did a really good job. She seemed to be, she really understood how to frame the jokes, like you said, and like her cadence and her delivery were what really sold it for me. Like that's really half the battle. Like the words themselves need to be funny, but the way your delivery has to really bring it home. And I think that she's someone who's sort of, I mean, we're seeing that she has a talent. She's got a knack for it. I mean, I think that's why that drove RuPaul to say, I think that you could have a future in this because you know how to tell a joke. So yeah, I think that she did a good job. And yeah, coming after Utica is going to make anybody by default look
amazing,
look a lot better. So
that's also part of it.
To be fair,
yeah.
I think one of the things that people aren't talking about Gottmik enough is the fact that she won a ball challenge and snatch game, which are two, like, those are big, big challenges to win, but that also shows her versatility. Like she can win doing something that has to do with improv and comedy and characterization and all those different kinds, make RuPaul laugh, but she can also win when it comes to the fashion game and such. And it's been interesting to me. A lot of people are like, I see her in the top 4, but I don't see her winning. And I'm like, it's really interesting because if you look at the other queens who have multiple wins, it's for relative. Well, Rose had was comedy and singing, so I guess that's a little different too. But this was just two things that were vastly different that weren't performance. One was performance based, one was fashion based. And so when she comes out here and nails this, and I actually thought she could win easily this challenge. I mean, she is a legitimate threat for that crown, and she has not been in the bottom 2.
I would not be mad at Gottmik winning this season at all.
Same.
Yeah.
But I just feel like she falls in the shadow of people like Rose and Simone. And I think that, she's really killing it.
I think for me with Gottmik was I felt super, super good about Gottmik coming into the season. Gottmik was someone that I had, was super familiar with before Gottmik came on the show. But then because of the sort of what I would say mediocre lip sync performance in the very first episode, I'm not gonna lie, I did judge her in the sense of, ooh, okay.
Yeah.
And then I felt like they're going to protect her. She's not going to end up in the bottom, because if she does end up in the bottom, she might get sent home. So I felt like production was also defending her in certain ways. But she, especially in the past few weeks, sort of similar to Bimini Bon Boulash, or my opinions on Bimini, has really, I think, just continued and consistently proven herself that there are lots of things that she can succeed at. And especially the comedy stuff, like the Snatch Game, that to me was really the turning point, because I think I'd expected her to win a fashion challenge probably at some point along the way. So that wasn't unexpected. But the fact that you can win that challenge and then win the Snatch Game and be in the top, if personally, for this week as well, that's super impressive. I would, like Aman said, I would be very happy if Gottmik ended up winning the season.
Totally.
And I think with this episode, now we can talk a little bit at the end. We're going into our final 5 of winner predictions, but I think the field is opening up so much more for me personally of who I think could end up winning.
Hopefully, if it's not a lip sync for the crown, because if it's a lip sync for the crown, then
well, okay. Maybe she could just over prepare. I don't know. Just whatever. Anyway.
I think the thing that she and Bimini, I think that Bimini is such a good comparison here. The thing about Mick and Bimini and queens like that is that they are genuinely having fun with the competition. Right. So even when they're nervous about something, they just kind of go, well, I'm just going to put my best foot forward and have fun with this. And that is what consistently makes you like a better queen in this competition, is even with the things that you're going to struggle with, have fun with them, because if you're having fun, that rubs off. Like, I can't tell you how many times, like, and this is for like anybody who's looking to like act or go into Broadway or anything like that. If you are not a dancer and you go to the dance audition and you're in character, and you can generally kind of get some of the movements down, but it's not technically perfect, you're more likely to move along in the audition process, because they want people who are characters that people can relate to, that energy first and foremost before they care about technicality, right? So if you aren't the best comedian in the world, you're not the best singer in the world or seamstress or anything, if you put your character and your soul into it, that energy feeds off. And that's what she has. And it's that's why I think that she's so fascinating to watch at the end of this competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And she looks fabulous too. So
I mean, that too. That helps.
Okay. We now need to move on to talk about Olivia, because I think apart from the content on Ru, there's a solid argument to maybe put her in the bottom, to be honest, at least for me. I felt like the whole baby voice thing that she was trying to do didn't work. It wasn't well established with the character. And I just overall did not respond well to this. The fact that also for me, I felt like she really had her head in the cards so much just detracted from what she was able to do. That being said, I understood why she was saved, because the signing the Declaration of Independence as the parent or guardian, that did really send me. And I laughed out loud. So if you can make me laugh out loud, then I think that you deserve some credit for that.
Yeah, so that was a really good joke. That was really good.
Yeah. So I don't know. I get why she was safe. And I felt like maybe hers was shorter to me, Aman. I don't know why, but I was like, maybe they're cutting stuff from hers.
Yeah, she definitely got a shorter edit than the other ones. But yeah, I think you're right. I think the baby voice was just, she said that she wanted to, be the really nice girl that surprisingly ended up being really mean. And it's like, okay, I kind of like what you're going for, but like, it just felt a little bit too put on. Like, Olivia, you're already kind of like whimsical as it is. I felt like she was being Olivia on crack. I'm like, this is like, Michelle had this face at the beginning of her set, like, and I was like, same. Like, this is not. I'm focusing way too much on like how you're talking than the actual joke. Like, and the only time that I really did laugh out loud was that one joke about the parent or guardian. So yeah, she got a few zingers in there about RuPaul specifically. And I think that's what ultimately kept her safe. But yeah, if Utica had not bombed so hard.
Yeah.
Or
right.
if
Or
Simone.
or Simone, this she would have been in the bottom.
For me, I really feel like if Olivia had committed even more so to this innocent, like,
yes,
it's like she didn't go far enough with that. Actually, it's as weird as it is. Like, she did the baby voice and that kind of thing, but like, if you're gonna go that route, what's the funniest thing about kids? For example,
like
they're so
anything.
brutally honest, right?
Yeah.
So you can channel that if you're gonna come across as like, I'm like a cute little kid because I'm innocent and sweet and I want to be friends with everybody, but you're a bitch. Like, there's like little things that you can do with that would make it a little funnier. But you have to, first of all, know what the timing is for that and like how to set up a joke, what the inflection is going to be in your voice, all those different kinds of things. The fact that you just decided to do this voice and you read off some cards and this was kind of the pacing that you did the entire time, like, that's not funny. That's a setup, but there's no punch. There's no like drastic turn. There's no like drop the act for like the punchline or whatever. I mean, do something like that to change it up a little bit. In the same way that like Simone did like the whole voice and did this again, and we've gotten used to it, but there was no punchline. It was just this over and over. Like, that's where these two, I think, struggled the most, was how do you turn your character into a roaster?
Right. And we've seen this concept before with, let's say, the reading challenge, where it's like, oh, I couldn't possibly read. Let's go. You need that heel turn to you set up your initial character, you shuffle out there, you be like, oh, hey guys, like, so excited to be here. Rosa really my thing, but you're a bitch. And you can change your voice and you can do, there's so many different ways to sort of set up that concept. And that, I think that's a good point, Beth, is that, well, maybe she just didn't take it far enough, because I didn't like where it was living in this sort of lukewarm land of it felt so half-assed that her set was just a normal set. So just be your normal self. You don't need to put on this affectation to make yourself seem like a child. I don't know. But
and if you're gonna do the child thing, don't dress like that. Dress like you did.
Yeah.
That's, you know what I mean? Like, you have to have,
like, yes, the wig that we got, the lace front joke, the ball.
Yes, put all that kind of stuff together, and not the same outfit, but don't look like you're a drag queen who is, in her 30s, which I think she's in her 20s, but in this outfit, to me, she says 30s. But then be putting on a voice and affectation that makes you seem like you're a child. Like, that's a disconnect too with the character. So if you're going to do that character, you got to let the audience in on that character even more.
I also didn't get the Valentina brow joke. That
I did not.
Me neither. Where was that going?
Does Valentina do like, I mean, I know
does the graphic like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish.
But it was funny because in her paint that day, she didn't do that.
I know.
So, but the patient zero of drag queens that for RuPaul, I know they were all like RuPaul's old, but that one also I thought was funny. And that was, I mean, at least I personally hadn't heard that one before, even though maybe it is a repeat. So anyway, I get it. I ultimately get it why Olivia was ultimately safe here. Although I think you could possibly make an argument for why it didn't necessarily work. All right. Lastly, we have the fabulous Rosé, who comes out here, 80s glam, like she be doing, but she has no cue cards and really just, I think, nails this set, Beth.
Totally. Rosé is just, I think, in terms of like acting and performing, she just is leaps and bounds over so many other of the girls in the competition. She really knows her craft and how to turn it on. I think her biggest challenge is that she doesn't have anybody who really challenges her, so she kind of holds back a little bit. Like, there's, you know what I mean? Like, Gottmik was really great. Simone can do some really great acting. She wasn't great in this challenge, but there's something about Rosé that I feel like she needs someone who she can kind of look at and go, oh, you're my competition. Okay, let me just turn this on a little bit more. And we've seen those moments, like with her and Denali being paired up a couple weeks in a row, where the first week they kind of looked at each other and went, well, we should have been in the top. And okay, let's work together. And then all of a sudden, Rosé's in the top the next week. This was an example where I thought she did really, really well. but I just felt like she was still slightly holding back a little bit. Like there was something there that I felt like she could have gone even further with some things and just didn't do so. But I'm still really proud of what she was able to put together this week. And I thought she could have won as well. I felt like Gottmik or Rose should have won over Candy. And I think a lot of it had to do with how Rose closed the show and how Gottmik was able to kind of just show that side of her that people didn't really expect.
So I felt for Rose with you did better in the rehearsal. Like, I almost want the queens to always do this in the rehearsal. I mean, not the necessarily the like a performance acting challenge, but if there's something where they're going to give you feedback like this, like a roast or the comedy or whatever, bomb it a little bit. You know, like, yeah, of course, give you your good jokes because you genuinely want feedback and critique on that. But when there was such high expectations, right? Isn't that the key to life? Low expectations. And so, you know, she was ultimately competing with herself, which kind of just sucks because it's like you're devaluing what she was able to do just because you knew she could have been better. But that shouldn't take away from what she did, Aman.
Yeah,
so I don't know.
It was like, yeah, was she better than Candy? That's all that really matters. Not better, screw the rehearsal. Was she better than Candy? That's all we need to know. So yeah, I totally agree there. I like the look, I am a memorization queen. I was the type of bitch that would walk into an audition and be off book immediately. So anybody that does that kind of stuff, I'm always like, yes, you get the extra points because I know that takes some time to commit. So the fact that she had all of her stuff down, she had a whole arc, she had a whole setup. She got because there were some queens that we didn't really get to see them actually roast Nina and Valentina and Heidi. I'm guessing because their jokes were so bad that they just didn't make it into the edit. But we got to see her roast Nina and Heidi and RuPaul. She even threw a joke at Candy in there. So I think that she had the most variety out of anybody. She had it memorized. It was down. She had a character there. Everything seemed set up for a win, but they just wanted Candy to snatch it.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially going into Final Five, Candy's the only one without a win, and anyway, I think there's just a little bit of how is that going to be perceived? But I think Rose really killed it here. I do get that sense though, the little bit of the holding back, the Beth that you mentioned, but we saw everything. The fact that she knew Heidi and had sort of had this relationship, and so it was almost a little bit of an inside joke, kind of. But then she brought us along with it. It took me a second to get it.
But that's exactly the point, right? Rose set up an inside joke so that everybody could hear and understand and made the connection. And Utica just fails to do that. Bring the audience with you on why this is funny. And Utica did it last week during the marketing stuff. She did it 2 weeks or 3 weeks before that. This is a consistent thing with Utica, which is why I went back to saying the judges know better at this point. So if the judges really care about a contestant, they tend to be I'm going to hit you over the head with the actual critique. And while I'm not saying that Michelle and Lonnie didn't tell Utica, hey, you're being a little mean, but they didn't say, you're being mean, this isn't funny. What they said was, that's not really funny. You got to try to be less mean and be more funny. Utica's not going to hear that. Rose would hear that. And so that's an appropriate critique for them. So this is one of the things that's interesting about this season, more so than any other, is that the guest judges have a way better sense of where Rose and Utica and all these other people are because they've come back 2 or 3 times. So they can speak to, okay, I kind of understand who you are a little bit now. So I think that this is just another kind of thing to kind of, let's take a look at this when the season's over and kind of go through, does this make sense with the story arc of these characters from these guest judges coming in who normally would have no context of the queens at all.
Yeah, so that's a good point. That's a good point.
I just love the fact that she brought Heidi in on that joke. And I believed her too. Heidi definitely looked really, really embarrassed. She was like, lies, lies.
Oh no. That was just really, really fun, and then got the roast in of Olivia sucks at the beginning, and then of course the Candy roast at the end. I thought all of that just really bookended it quite nicely. The other sort of random thing that we got was the closing remarks from Miss Congeniality, which it was weird because I was like, were they supposed to do a whole set? Because Nina West had cards. I don't know. It's just sort of weird.
I think they probably do because at roasts, typically those that get roasted get to go last and they like roast the panel and everything. But like we haven't seen that with Michelle or RuPaul when they've gotten roasted in the past. So this was a little different. But.
Yeah.
I would have loved to hear more of Nina West. I was like, geez, this is funny. This was better than half the other queens.
Okay, she had a joke that it was, where did I saw it? I saw it on Reddit, but it was a video of Nina, and she said something about this. Well, obviously wasn't in the episode, but she probably didn't say it because the line was, she was reading Heidi, and it was, oh yeah, Heidi's got a bigger gap between her front two teeth than the background checks on season 12. Or something like that. I died. Anyway.
I know, right? That is so funny to me because I was sitting here just like, if I had to read these queens, what would I do? And I literally went for the same setup, but I hadn't gotten to the point of like what the punchline was going to be for Heidi. So I live. It's bad, but it's that would be good for a roast. Not on television, but
all right. Yeah, right. Exactly. Very charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and energy. Feeling there. Okay, so we don't have a runway this week. We just jumped straight into the judging, and I feel like we kind of talked a little bit about that as we were going through the queens. Of course, they talk about how Utica is just so harsh, and I think from the critiques it becomes clear, and this comes up in Untucked as well, that Simone and Utica were going to end up being in the bottom two. They telegraphed that pretty well through the critiques, and so I think the queens were prepared when ultimately Utica and Simone were announced to be in the bottom two, and we talked about Candy, of course, as our winner. This was a foregone conclusion to me. I'm not going to lie to you guys. They're lip syncing to, No Tears Left to Cry, Ariana Grande. And I didn't even watch the lip sync, Beth. I did, but I didn't really pay attention because there was no way that Simone was going to go for me. It was Utica.
Yeah. Definitely. And I love this song. Okay. 2-3 years ago when it was big, I was playing it nonstop in my car over the summer. It was great. Had a good time. But this is like not what I think of as like a good lip sync song.
It was not, no.
Because it's the type of song that like kind of, but not really has a dance beat to it, is kind of ballad-like, but isn't. Like what's the story that you're really trying to tell? So it's hard to lip sync to a song like that. And so what I was actually impressed with the most was like how Simone was able to do these facial expressions and bring me in on a journey that I was not expecting. Like, and I was like, oh, that's an interesting story you're telling, like I kind of really followed for her. And I found myself asking, would it be really great if they could have just cut Utica all together out of this lip sync. And I just got to watch Simone because I was just like, so like enthralled with what she was doing.
That just reminds me of the cherry pie lip sync where they just like cut her out. But anyway, Aman, what did you think about this?
I mean, look, I think Simone, she has won so many challenges. There was just no way that they were going to send her home. I don't think that she did that much better than Utica in this lip sync, to be honest. Like I said, I've been kind of making this point about Simone. It's a good thing that she keeps winning because when she ends up in the bottom, the lip sync for me is always sort of the same. Like it's always those facial expressions and those, she goes the comedy route, which isn't always bad, but it's like, oh, we've seen it. I mean, it's not entirely her fault. Like, they made them all lip sync off the bat. You know what I mean? So we got to see how all of them are going to do it. And now that she's done it 3 times now, I'm like, oh God, like you are lucky that you were so talented that you are winning all these challenges, because if I were RuPaul, I would be like, okay, let's send her home. But there was just no way that you're going to send her home when she's won those challenges. And Utica was literally calling people whales and bitches and all sorts of stuff. Like it was just going to happen. So, I'm glad that she stayed. It is giving me a bit of like the vulnerability edit that we need from Simone, so that it's not a foregone conclusion that she wins the comps or wins the entire show, because now she's been in the bottom 2 twice. She might have 4 wins, but she has 2 bottom 2 appearances.
Plus we still have the curse of the 4 wins. So
yep. So we'll see what happens next week. At this point now, I don't really know what's going to happen. I mean, Candy has won a competition, but like, is it too little too late for her? Can she win one more at the final 5? Like,
I'm going to be shocked if next week if it's anybody other than Candy or Olivia that goes home. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yes.
I would be shocked if it's Gottmik, Rose, or Simone. Like, I would be shocked.
Especially now that we know that it's like an acting challenge. There's no way that Rose is going home.
There's no way that Gottmik, I don't think, would go
not
home.
going home.
Let's be honest. They love Candy's acting. I don't think Candy's going home.
I think it's Olivia for me.
But Olivia also won an acting challenge being a mime.
Here's my concern.
It'd be interesting to see.
Well, here's my concern with Olivia is, have we had a queen? Essentially, I was looking at the Wikipedia, and let me pull it up again, because I was looking at the overall performances, and you have Olivia with, win, safe, low, bottom 2, low. It just feels like she had that peak, and it's been a little bit of a fall for her. And that momentum is difficult to fight against, because I feel like that was Utica's issue as well, was a little bit of this just downward trend, and she couldn't recover from that. And it was 2 challenges of very similar weirdness in a row. But anyway, so that's my concern for Olivia. Yeah. So even despite the fact that she has 2 wins, I think that downward momentum is really going to be a hindrance for her going into this final 5.
I also think that there's a favoritism of Candy from production from what we've seen too. So
that too. I mean, again, you were trying to justify why you saved her. You know what I mean? So if I had to predict,
I would be so pissed if I was Olivia. Like, if she goes home next week, having won 2 challenges, and Candy just won. It's like Candy just turned her homework in at the last day of the report period and gets a passing grade.
But I mean, that's the thing, is then you look at Candy, and Candy had, and I'm just starting from episode 6 when Olivia had her first win.
We got a first person booted from the season when it was episode 6.
The first time someone actually went home. So Candy was bottom 2, high, bottom 2, safe, high, win. Right. So you have almost the exact opposite when it comes to that momentum of propelling her up, sort of in this
she's on an upswing
trajectory. Yeah, right. And oh man, of course, Aman, if I was Olivia, I would be so pissed. I empathize with queens like Denali and Olivia if that ends up happening, and Jan, who are just sort of in this weird overproduction bubble of not being someone who either they don't think is going to be a favorite, or the judges just don't like, or whatever the case is, that is potentially a reason for this perceived favoritism.
Right.
And it just, it's, look, that's the way that this drag cookie crumbles, I think, sometimes. and so if I'm, predicting going into the final 4, I think it will be Gottmik, Simone, and Rose, who I think are probably one of them will win the season. And
I would agree.
Candy as the sort of, oh my God, who am I thinking of? If I was ready to lip sync, I was motherfucking Silky a little bit of sort of this production favorite that ends up making it to the
ready.
I was ready. They need to put that back in Untucked. I'm sick of Aiden Zane. Okay, put that back.
And everybody in this goddamn place coming for me.
Anyway.
Honestly, they only need to show the scene in All Stars 1's where they all go off on Mimi. That's the only thing they ever need to show for
we did.
Well, we did, Mimi. Change your costume, change it around. Come on. Well, come on, teleport me
to Mars.
Teleport us to Mars. There's Teletubby. My God, I can't talk. There's so many. Just honestly, could you imagine? Somebody out there who's listening needs to be good at editing and such. Can somebody just put together the beginning of Untucked the way that they have it filmed, but change the sound clips to only be from that scene against Mimi M first? And tag me when you do it, because it would be amazing.
I know it's not an Untucked moment, but I'm just thinking of fabulous Tammy Brown moments of the walking children in nature. Why don't see you walking children in nature? Anyway,
my favorite. Have you ever seen that video of her where she went, "Did I tell you about the time I found a dead body?"
haven't seen that.
I was walking on the side of the road and I thought, wow, what a wonderful mannequin. And I thought of all the ways I could dress it up. And I was like, it was a dead body.
Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
Oh my
Tammy's
God.
amazing. I love her.
Anyway, well, speaking of Untucked, is there anything that you guys want to talk about? The turning a new leaf from Candy and Rose, I thought was hilarious. But, you know, I mean, otherwise we get Simone and Utica being like, yeah, we're for sure in the bottom. Simone's upset at herself, frustrated. Olivia asking for opinions on her set, which was a choice. And Olivia, I guess, was asked out by Utica. I think is really the biggest story here, that Utica wants to go on a date with Olivia. Okay.
I saw that. And she said yes. So I
She
wonder
said
how
yes.
that date went. I wonder if we'll probably get some more tea on that in the reunion, I guess.
Oh, I hope so.
See how
Yeah. They just really want a relationship.
See, now you guys were just I was assuming that it was probably going to be Candy that would go next, but you guys are sort of like convincing me that it'll be that might be Olivia next. And now that reminded me of like this moment in Untucked when she does ask the rest of the girls how they thought that she did, and that little moment with her on stage with RuPaul where RuPaul was like, do you feel like you've done what you were supposed to do? And she was like, yeah, I feel like I've done what I'm supposed to do. So now it's really giving me an edit of like she's trying to fight back because she can sense that she's about to go down. So
I'm so happy you brought up that moment, Aman. I forgot it. I feel like I fulfilled the requirements of the challenge, and RuPaul just being like, okay.
Yeah, that might have been that might have been it. That might have been what's about to do her in.
Oh my gosh. And then my other tinfoil hat theory was when Michelle was talking about Rose. Oh, this girl is like Bianca, and Rose cut her off in the middle of saying that.
Or
I don't know.
RuPaul
Like,
did?
yeah, RuPaul did. That's what I meant. When Michelle was talking about that Rose is like Bianca, RuPaul cut off. I was like,
Was
ooh, is this like shade? I don't know.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I thought the same exact thing. He's cut off Michelle like 3 times this season. And normally it's like a one time in the season, he kind of cuts her off and it's like you can tell like, okay, whatever. But it is like felt pointed this season.
Or I don't know, is that shade at Rose? She's like, don't say that. We can't have you compare her to Bianca because then I'll have to give her the win. So, and I don't want her to win. Anyway, I don't know. Just a theory. Okay, I think that's everything from this week. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? Cool.
Nope. That's it for me.
Then next week, we will be back to talk about Henny, I Shrunk the Drag Queen, which is an acting challenge at Final 5, which I think is an interesting choice, but we shall see how that ends up playing out. And I think really the biggest story is this like Simone redemption thing that might be going on. I don't know, but the preview that I feel like things are falling apart around me and seeing her crying, I'm very interested to see what happens in this next week.
So we talked quite extensively. Is it Olivia or is it Candy going? But if Simone gets in the bottom 2 again,
could you imagine?
That would be the biggest gag of the season if she gets in the bottom 2 and gets sent home at Final 5. Because at this point, this would be her 3rd time in the bottom 2, 2 weeks in a row.
And she's not a Cameron Michaels when it comes to the lip syncs. You know what I mean? So
right.
Oh my God. How dramatic would that be?
I know.
Oh my God. Not that I'm rooting for that because obviously I think she is, she's good at what she does, but that'd be fabulous. All right.
It would definitely be a moment.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Okay. Let's get out of here. Aman, where can people find you on social media and what are you up to?
You can follow me on Twitter at Aman Adwin. Also, you can follow me on Twitch at the same name. I've got the Choir Room podcast with Matt Ligori still running strong. Got a bunch of character analysis that came out this past weekend. And as always, I'm over at RHAP covering Big Brother Canada 9. And that's it.
And Beth, what about you? Where can people find you on social media? What are you up to?
Yeah, you can find me at AugustaWind11 on Twitch, Twitter, and Instagram. On my Twitch channel, you will also find me going live with Allison and Tyler every week to discuss my weekly meltdowns coverage of Big Brother Canada 9 after the eviction episodes, as well as the challenge. And then I am hopefully within the next week and a half going to be releasing our first episode or two of the new podcast I'm on with Dylan Zahner, which is called Hot Mess Moments with Beth Dillon, as we discuss The Nanny and Lost.
Ooh, okay.
It'll be a lot of fun.
That's so fun. All right. And you can follow me on Twitter at Liana RHAP. Puya and I are covering The Masked Singer, which has been an absolute gag so far of a season. It's been really, really fun. If you're not checking it out, I highly recommend it. Or just listen to the podcast because it's just Puya and I kikiing and having a great time. You can also follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/LianaIsm. And if you are not a patron, I mentioned at the top of the show, consider checking that out. You can look up the patron program and all of the wonderful benefits that you get from becoming a patron of RHAP at robhasawebsite.com/Patreon or patreon.com/RHAP. Leave your star ratings and reviews for us on iTunes, robhasawebsite.com/Drag Race. And thank you to Scott St. Pierre behind the scenes. We will talk to y'all soon. Bye.